As a person who likes to argue, I enjoy a good debate. Luckily for me, the apologetics space has been providing some very good, entertaining videos for my enjoyment. Before I go any further, I would like to give a disclosure. I was raised Christian. And that is one of the reasons why these debates resonate with me. The video is also edited to highlight the portions of importance. The link to the whole video will be in the description and pinned at the top of the comment section. Some of the apologetics that I have been binge watching include Avery, aka GodLogic.
Whoever says that the Messiah is the Son of God, the Quran says that Allah will destroy them and they're deluded.
Right.
Sam Shamoun.
In chapter 3, verse 55, can I finish? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar!
Big Jon Steel.
You realize how stupid you sound.
And Revelation 22:13. Most importantly, I watch them to learn how to apply logical argumentations to things that I hold to be true in my life. The analysis of the video will not look at the theology but on whether or not there is consistency in argumentation. The video is a debate, or rather a conversation between a Christian and a Muslim. What interests me in this video is whether there will be a consistent application of values and judgment. I am only analyzing the argument, its logic, and its consistency. For theological debates, I believe the apologetics will be more than pleased if you contact them for a debate, if that is what you are interested in.
Was it that Allah was referring to when he said the Injil that they have with them?
Okay, that's referring to the New Testament, or whatever they have with them.
If you are a person who likes a good and robust debate, this one will trigger you from here to the moon. I promise you that. This is obviously a clip from a long live, and the conversation starts on why Muslims dislike Paul.
I saw your topic, why do Muslims dislike Paul?
I know the name of the host, Avery, but I do not know the name of the caller, so I will refer to him as the Muslim. No disrespect intended.
One, I don't know the authority of which Paul has to write 3/4 of the New Testament. I believe that Paul has not had the opportunity to attend the teachings of Jesus Christ when he was preaching the gospel. If God sent him, then why Jesus claimed that he was coming to accomplish the laws, to finish up with the laws.
That's right.
So if the laws are to be finished or to be completed by Jesus Christ, then which one is Paul coming to accomplish again?
To summarize the point, Jesus in the Bible claims that he had come to fulfill the laws, or to complete the laws. Therefore, what is the purpose of Paul? What is his role? What has he come to do?
If Jesus fulfilled and completed the law, then there shouldn't be anyone else coming after him to add to anything. Is that correct?
Avery repeats the argument to ensure he has got it correct and get the Muslim to affirm that the position has been correctly articulated so that the person cannot later claim that his position was misrepresented. Let us see how Avery goes about it.
Stop there, because that's interesting. If Jesus fulfilled and completed the law, then there shouldn't be anyone else coming after him to add to anything. Is that correct?
That's very correct.
Now that the Muslim is committed to his words, this is how Avery springs his trap to test for consistency in the argumentation and in the logic.
So then why in the world would you guys believe that Muhammad comes after Jesus completing the religion?
Hold up. Wait a minute.
At this point, the Muslim is trapped by his earlier assertions and commitments. If the reason you do not like person A is because they did thing X, if I showed you that person B that you like also did thing X, to be consistent, you have to say that you now do not like person B, right? Let me attempt to make the argument a bit clearer for the people at the back. If you say that the reason you do not like person A is because they lie, if I demonstrate that person B that you currently like also lie, you have no choice but to say that I also don't like person B because they both lie. Let us see if the Muslim will be consistent. The reason he does not like Paul is because he comes after Jesus, right? Will he be consistent and say that he does not like Muhammad too because he also comes after Jesus?
So then why in the world would you guys believe that Muhammad comes after Jesus, completing the religion or adding anything to it.
Wonderful. You see, Islam does not believe that Jesus Christ came to fulfill it. It is a biblical statement.
Sherlock Holmes, but I am the best detective there is in this goddamn state. How dare you?
How is what he said an answer to the question Avery asked? How does it being quote unquote a biblical statement an answer to whether or not, since Muhammad also came after Jesus, if the Muslim does not like Muhammad too? It is not that hard. Consistency dictates that both be judged the same.
So wait, so you don't believe that Jesus came fulfilling the law?
No, he didn't come to complete it. Because in the Quran, it says, Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinukum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum Islam adina.
Today we have perfected your religion for you.
Thank you. So that was under the prophetship of the Prophet Muhammad.
This is not just prattle. This is where someone is putting together sentences that mean absolutely nothing. Anyway, let us see how Avery deals with the prattle.
So then you shouldn't have a problem with Paul coming after Jesus if it wasn't completed.
See, this is why the Quran is very, very correct, right?
After
the Prophet Muhammad,
you're moving too fast.
You cannot add anything or reduce
anything.
Come on,
can you hear me?
So essentially, when Paul came after Jesus and continued with the work of God, that is problematic. But when Muhammad comes after Jesus and continued the work of God, that is okay.
If you're saying that the religion wasn't completed with Jesus, it was completed after Muhammad, so then you should have no problem with Paul coming in between those two.
Exactly. To be consistent, if Paul coming after Jesus is problematic, then Muhammad coming after Jesus is just as problematic. But if the argument for Muhammad is that actually Jesus hadn't completed God's work and it is Muhammad who did complete the work, then the same argument applies to Paul coming after Jesus, but before Muhammad. Now that that contention has been neutralized, let us see the second argument that the Muslim will present.
The thing is, what made Paul a prophet? He's a self-acclaimed apostle.
What's that? What's that, brother?
Wow! How is the Muslim not seeing how that point will be used against Muhammad? I mean, if you step in the ring with an apologetic, whether a Christian apologetic or a Muslim apologetic or even atheists, you have to think through your issues of contention and bring forth points that cannot be easily used to cripple your own argument. How do you give your opponent ammunition that you know will be used against you?
Let's go with that now. So this is a different direction. So now you're saying that Paul is a self-proclaimed apostle. Now,
Apostle, yes.
Okay, so who proclaimed Muhammad to be an apostle of Allah?
It does not even take a minute and the Muslims' contention is already being leveled against Muhammad. Will he be consistent this time? Let us see.
Yes, you see, Muhammad.
That you do.
The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every prophet that comes from a lineage.
Here comes the prattle. Not answering the question, but will talk your ear off until you forget what the question was. In terms of a debating tactic, you can only use it once. Once people know that you like to run your mouth, they will not allow that in future. I will even go as far as to say that it is a risky strategy because now your future debate opponents will not give you time to build on your arguments because they will be guarding against you prattling them into submission.
Whatever, it's an issue of belief.
You're not
People
answering.
can go ahead and believe.
What I asked you, my brother. You're not answering what I asked you. I asked you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm even having a brain fart. You even made me. I was listening to you. You made me forget what I even asked in the first place. See, that's that trick. That's that Muslim trick they do, man. I got God in it.
Oh, no.
You got me in the syrup, man. You got me. I don't even remember
what you wanted to ask is let me remind you of what you wanted to ask.
Yeah, what did I ask?
You wanted to ask me who then made Prophet Muhammad.
There it is. That was the question, yeah.
The Muslim here was honest and gracious enough to remind Avery his question. Now, will he be consistent and answer it outright?
That question can go all the way back to even Abraham, Noah, Moses, and if you don't believe in the scriptures that they brought, the Torah and everything, you are bound to ask such a question: who made them? And because we are dealing with issue of belief.
I'm not asking about them though, because we know where their authority comes from. I'm asking, who appointed Muhammad as an apostle of Allah? Who?
God did. God did.
Okay, so but who says this? Because it sounds like Muhammad is a self-proclaimed. He's claiming that God did that, right?
Avery now has been forced to go straight to what his question is about, because the Muslim was going on and on and on about things that have absolutely nothing to do with the question. Let me explain why all the claims about Moses and Abraham were nonsensical. Let us, for the sake of argument, grant that all those quote-unquote prophets he named were self-proclaimed themselves. That does not answer the question on whether or not Muhammad was also a self-proclaimed prophet or someone else proclaimed him as a prophet. Obviously, we have to put God aside in this, since all of them claim to have gotten the revelation from God. Will the Muslim bite the bullet, or will he continue to prattle?
Well, the reason why, because there is everything that you want to make judgment on. You make judgment based on past, present, and the future, right?
A few moments later.
You see, Paul has a history. Paul has a history starting from Saul, and then
2,000 years later.
Up till date, Christians do not know the very direct identity of Paul.
Yes,
where
we do.
He claims to be
about?
a Roman. Hold on. Where he claims to be a Roman, and another place where he claims in the same Bible
what does
where
this
he
have
claims
to do with,
be.
See, come on. The only reason, listen, my brother, the only reason why I'm cutting you off right now is because you're going off the point. We're not talking about that. We're talking about being self-appointed as a messenger, as a prophet, and that you're saying that Paul is that which disqualifies him. So I'm asking you about Muhammad. Who called Muhammad out as a messenger of God?
Allah did.
Okay, but
he had a revelation.
I heard good, but who's saying that Muhammad had this revelation from God and that he is now a prophet? Who's saying this?
The book.
Are you stupid or something?
This is how you know someone is stuck. They know the answer. They know that it can only be that answer. But they will say a whole lot of nothing just to avoid saying that answer, because they know the answer will defeat the entire argument. Good debaters bite the bullet and move on to their next argument. Prattling exhausts your audience and it makes you lose credibility. Just bite the damn bullet.
Yeah, but who's the book from?
It is evident in the literature, which is the Quran, that he actually brought.
Who's reciting this literature to you?
Who's reciting this literature to me? He is having the revelation and reciting it and writing it.
Who is?
The Prophet Muhammad is having the revelation and reciting it.
Good. So Muhammad is the one who's having this supposed revelation and reciting this revelation, telling you that he himself is a prophet, messenger sent from God. So he is self-proclaimed. Yes.
Well, at the end of the day, okay. Let me answer yes. Let me expatiate.
Look, if it takes forever to accept the inevitable and the audience has to sit through all that nonsensical prattle, what makes you think they have the patience to hear you substantiate or differentiate whatever? Imagine if the Muslim had said when the question was initially asked, Muhammad is also self-proclaimed, but let me tell you why he is different from Paul. That would have been a very interesting twist and the audience would have been in for it. But to go on and on and on about nothing, then after a couple of interactions and attempts to bring you back on topic, you concede the point, but now you want to quote-unquote explain?
Oh, hell no!
You did acknowledge that you was like, you know what, okay, yes, in a way, yes, Muhammad is self-proclaimed messenger, right? And you're saying that Paul is a self-proclaimed messenger. Now at first you use this as a critique against Paul, him being a self-proclaimed messenger. However, you see that Muhammad is a self-proclaimed messenger. So if you're going to be fair, you would have to use that against Muhammad too, right?
Avery now is checking on the consistency of the second argument. He had said that Paul is disqualified from being quote-unquote a prophet because he is self-proclaimed. But he had considered that Muhammad could also be said to be self-proclaimed as well. Is now Muhammad also disqualified from being a quote-unquote prophet?
That's why I said that the proclamation has to have a source.
Beautiful.
And when you have a source, as human beings, we have to subject those proclamations to certain intellectual criticism in order to find the legitimacy of it.
All right, let's pause there. Pause there. So I like what you're saying. So there's a claim being made. So now there has to be a source or substance behind the claim, right?
Correct.
If Muhammad claims to be a messenger of God, he has to have substance, some evidence to support that he's a messenger of God. Same with Paul.
God.
Paul says
Good.
that Jesus appeared to him and knocked him off his high horse, and now he's a Christian all of a sudden. He needs proof that substantiates his call as an apostle of Jesus Christ.
Something very interesting about Christian apologetics like Avery, Big Jon Steel, and Sam Shamoun is that they take your criticism, examine it, and then show you how the same criticism applies to you and asks you to be consistent.
Would you say that, like, to prove that somebody is a messenger of God, that they would be followed more than likely by miraculous works, like God would do miracles behind them, and that would be an evidence that they are actually telling the truth, that their claim has substance?
You see, when Jesus came, let's go to the Bible first before we go back to the Quran, right? When Jesus came, he has mentioned that those miracles should not be the basis on which people's faith should be built.
Right now, the conversation is, how do we prove that Muhammad and Paul are actual messengers of God? They both claim to have gotten a revelation from God. How do we test that claim? And specifically, if signs, wonders, and miracles can be used as proof that a person was sent by God?
Let me stop you there. That's actually not true, but you're not completely off either. So let me tell you how. Okay, and some Christians might be like wondering, like, what? So actually, Jesus did use his miracles as a basis for why they should believe him. He said, "If you don't believe my words, then believe the works that I do, to show you that I come from the Father. I'm not working on my own, right? But it's the Father who works through me." Miracles was a basis for proof that somebody is a prophet or a messenger. However, here's where you were actually kind of on the money, where you're saying that is not the end all be all, because, you know, the Bible says in the Torah, it says that if a prophet comes to you and he gives a word that I have not given him, this is God speaking, that God has not given him, and he has done even a sign or a wonder before your eyes, but then he tells you to go after these false gods, then he is a false prophet and he should be put to death. I did not tell him to do this, but I'm testing you, right? So somebody could actually work what seems to be a sign or a wonder, but if they're giving a false message, if they're speaking not in the name of God and giving a false message and contradicting God, then that's an evidence that they're a false prophet, right?
Good.
So they need to be in line with God's message. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah, very well. Now, with the same example or explanation that you just gave right now, did you realize that the works of Paul were contradicting the teachings of the gospel of Jesus Christ?
I'm retarded?
Oh, my Muslim brother, here you go again, giving every ammunition to use against Muhammad. A cursory reading of the Gospels and the Quran could tell even the most ignorant of people that the messages are different.
All right, so let's pause there, okay? I like where this is going. See, like I think everything you say, I'm alike. But okay, so we're now building a criteria. A person who is a messenger or a prophet needs to be consistent with the people that came before him. You would agree there, right? Can't contradict them.
Right.
Okay. So Paul, if he's really an apostle of God, right, he needs to be in line with what Jesus taught in the gospel.
Jesus, exactly.
Right. Or what Moses taught in the Torah, all of that. Okay. And same with Muhammad. Muhammad has to line up with what Jesus taught in the other prophets. Okay, cool. So we're saying if Paul contradicted what Jesus taught in the gospel, then he's a false messenger. He's a false apostle. And I would agree with you on that.
Yes, sir.
If Muhammad contradicted what Jesus taught in the gospel, then he would be a false messenger, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
So let me just give you an example. All right, and I'll let you give your example on Paul. Jesus in the gospel, this is what he taught. John 3:16, one of the most famous verses. You probably know it.
For God so loved the world.
You already know it. That he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Did Muhammad line up with this teaching, or did he contradict this teaching that God sent his son into the world?
There is no historical or literature in the Bible or the Quran or the Torah or any book at all that shows that God has a wife.
Jesus Christ.
This Muslim cannot answer questions. Maybe he has a medical condition, or maybe back in the day, he answered a question directly and collapsed. But this is exhausting. Every question is answered with a history lesson or a theology lesson or just prattle-babble. It is a very simple question, bro. Here, a yes or no would have sufficed.
Christians don't believe that God has a wife, nor does the Bible say that God ever had a wife in order to have a son. We believe that God can have a son of his own self. He doesn't need to have a wife to do that. That's in the Quran.
Wonderful. The Quran says that. Now, what I want to also add is that both Islam and through Christianity, which even the Quran has actually propounded on or spoke about, they take their root from Judaism, all the way from the religion that was actually brought down through Abraham.
Will you answer the goddamn question? We do not need the preaching. We came here for the conversation. If you wanted to hear preaching, there are plenty of channels we could have gone to. If you are asked a question and then in answering you decide to tell us everything except what pertains to the question, to the point where you even forgot what the question was.
Yeah, but that doesn't answer the question, brother. Do you remember the question? What's the question
again?
The question was, does Muhammad line up with what Jesus taught in the gospel when he said that God sent his son into the world to save it? Or does he contradict that?
Any Muslim that does not believe in Jesus Christ is not a Muslim.
You disrespect yourself and your nation. You are made of stupid.
I know that was a bit harsh, but this is too much. He cannot answer a question. You ask him what 1 + 1 is and he will start telling you the history of Saudi Arabia. Ask him about the history of Saudi Arabia and he will start telling you the pros and cons of artificial intelligence. He cannot answer a question.
First of all, I want to take you somewhere before I get to that point. Because you have to understand that
one eternity later,
you and I believe that God doesn't have a son.
No.
You're a Christian, I'm a Muslim.
No, you don't believe that. I believe that God has a son in Jesus Christ. That's what Jesus said himself in the gospel. That's
so what about you? Are you a child of God? Are you a son of God too?
I sure am. Glory to God. He says to anyone who believes in the name of the Son, he gives them rights to be called sons of God as well, to be adopted into the family of God. So
let's just assume that
the question is,
yeah,
does Muhammad line up or contradict the teaching of Jesus in the gospel when he says God sent his son into the world to save it? Does Muhammad contradict that?
God does not have a son.
Man, what the fuck is you talking about? What the fuck was that? I'm sorry.
Okay, I throw in the towel. I am done. My patience is at the limit. This was painful to watch. When will people learn that direct answers give you much credibility? It is okay to give explanations, but you should first answer the question and then explain your answer. And by answer, I mean answer the question asked, not the question you made up. This is what was exposed about the Muslim. Number 1, he does not know his content. Number 2, he has no ability to answer a question. Number 3, he likes the sound of his voice way too much. And lastly, he brought us on to a nuclear war. In debates or arguments, you have no choice but to know your arguments. Test those arguments by tearing them apart yourself and seeing how strong they are. Stress test them. Assume the person you are debating knows more about your argument than yourself. Ask yourself, if I was to challenge this point, how would I go about it? Then come up with good counter arguments against those challenges. I hope this video has been triggering to you as much as it has been to me.
I feel offended. I feel offended right now.
Subscribe to the channel. If not...